What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Judd Zulgad, new to 1500 ESPN and 1500ESPN.com. Welcome.
Great to be here.
I've seen some videos that look similar to this, but I think these are going to be better.
They might be very good. That's, you know what? I always try to do the best video work possible, Tom.
So you were gone for one day, and I think you wrote it on Twitter that you're gone for 24 hours, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose on the injury front. Throughout training camp and really into the preseason, it didn't seem as though the Vikings had any significant injuries that were going to hobble people. Yes, Visante Shanko had missed a little bit of time. Percy Harvin was a little dinged up.
And he always is.
But all of a sudden, exactly. Scott Kuster suffers a season-ending neck injury at a time when it looked as though he might be pushing to be the starting right guard of this football team. And then Kevin Williams dealing with a foot problem. It's kind of inevitable. They haven't had anybody blow out a knee yet, but these are the little sorts of things that could have an impact.
Yeah, the Kevin Williams injury would really concern me, though, because it's plantar fasciitis, which sports fans in this town have heard about for years, going back to Michael Williams of the Timberwolves, Marty Cordova, Wally Zerbiak. Kevin's a 30-year-old football player who is good because he's athletically gifted. He is a great defensive tackle, but he needs to be able to move. He's not Pat Williams. He's not an A-gap nose tackle who just stands there. He's a guy who needs to be able to use his pass rushing skills. I think he had one sack last year, which was a definite disappointment. Teams pay a ton of attention to this guy, but at 30 years old to have a foot problem, this is something to really keep an eye on, in my opinion, because this is one of those deals where in 2 months, for instance, all of a sudden you're saying, you know, Kevin's not playing that well. And then you remember this. This is something that, if they don't handle it right, could hobble him basically throughout the season.
And the fact that Leslie Frazier said when they looked at him in the snaps that he did play, which weren't many at Seattle, he was significantly hobbled, enough so that they felt as though they had to send him to a foot specialist. That, to me, says there's something more to it. I don't know that Kevin is nearly as concerned as the team is, having watched him on tape, probably because, I mean, he's a prideful guy and a really athletic guy who figures I can probably get by.
Well, and he heard it during the offseason training. Then it came back. Then it went away. So I think he thinks it'll go away again. But that's the problem, is something like this can keep recurring, keep coming back. So in 2 weeks, if he feels great, gets back out on the field, and then re-injures it, you're going to have this problem all season. And this is just one with this defense. That is one guy in the middle there that they can rely on, game in, game out, tons of snaps. And if all of a sudden you got to take him out, there's just so many moving parts on this team. That's one they don't need.
And not to mention the fact that now on the other side of the ball, I don't think you can underestimate the Scott Kuster injury, because let's face it, the way that they had worked them during practice, you can tell the Vikings don't have a lot of confidence in their options if Anthony Herrera is not ready. Herrera looked better in the one-on-one pass rushing drills today, but he's still not even 9 months removed from knee reconstruction surgery, which for a 31-year-old guy who weighs over 300 pounds is a big deal.
And Tom, when we got to Mankato, before anybody knew Bryant McKinnie showed up at 400 pounds, we all said, big question mark, offensive line. There's no doubt about that. Well, now McKinney is gone. Charlie Johnson, if he lasts 16 games at left tackle, I will be amazed. Steve Hutchinson is aging. John Sullivan, to me, is still not proven as their center. There's so many question marks on that offensive line, and if Adrian Peterson is going to be successful and McNabb's going to survive the season, this is a real issue. Yeah,
Bill Musgrave looked at me after his press conference today, stopped, and goes, I really like that line in your column the other day about we have 4 right guards, and that means we have none. Our right tackle can be exposed with movement, our center can be exposed with power, and our left tackle looks like a guard. He recited it verbatim and then smiled and walked away. I don't think he actually liked it.
I don't think he was happy with you, but whenever a coach does that too, it also means that you found something that he doesn't like, and that is you found the fact that the reality is there's tons of question marks, and Musgrave's trying to build up this offense. I think they have a good offensive line coach. I think the new scheme is going to be good, but who's going to play in them? That's the question. Who is going to play in them? And the other thing is, if you think about it too, they're going to go away from zone blocking, right?
At least to an extent.
To an extent. Okay, well, your center is the one guy who's probably best in zone blocking, right? Because as a road grader...
You would hope that he is.
Yeah. So, I mean, but there is just... This offensive line, I think Bill Musgrave is probably losing some sleep at night about it, and you probably didn't help his cause at all.
And now looking at just the way that the offense is operated too, you continue to see check down passes, short routes, and that may be exactly what Musgrave envisions with this team, because you have guys like Adrian Peterson who are so dangerous if you just give him a long handoff into his hands. Percy Harvin in the slot, bubble screens, movement type of stuff, whatever you can do with him, he's dangerous in that. But you also have a question mark in terms of, will Bernard Berrien actually make an impact at split end? And do you have an offensive line that you feel confident enough to run 7-step drops and wait and throw the football down the field? I'm not convinced at this point that they believe in those guys enough.
And that hit, when Charlie Johnson whiffed basically, or missed the block on Saturday and McNabb got
went
hit.
the wrong way.
McNabb is going to be 35 in November. He cannot take that many hits like that.
He's played 16 games one time since 2003.
And then you get into Christian Ponder, who I think has proven that while I think he's got a decent future, he needs to sit and learn. I mean, his head is swimming during practice. So if you're in a situation where Ponder's going to have to play now, that's not good.
I mean, look at Christian Ponder in practice today. How many throws, even though he's running some scout work and whatnot there, overthrows, just bad misses. What I keep seeing with Ponder is he ends up flat-footed, and that's the sign of a quarterback who he's just not up to the speed of the game, where he's caught and he's a split second late, and those windows are closing a lot faster than they did in the ACC.
Yeah, and the arm strength with Ponder is not an issue in my mind. The arm strength is fine, but like you said, where he sets on the throws and the overthrows, which have been consistent throughout camp, are a real issue. So if this offensive line can't keep McNabb healthy, they're going to be in some trouble. And they might be in trouble regardless. But the thing that we're going to have to wait until the season opens to see too is Adrian Peterson. Because he's the guy, they're not going to use him that much in camp. They shouldn't use him that much in camp. He's going to be a vital part of this offense. But if these guys can't find a way to go vertical down the field, do you know how many men we're going to see in the box? I mean, Adrian Peterson is literally going to look every time and see basically everybody up towards the line of scrimmage.
Which is how it was early on in his career, too, when they didn't have an offense that had that element, which is why they overspent and brought in Bernard Berrien in 2008. Berrien in 2008 versus Berrien in 2011, it's a little bit different guy. That's what I keep seeing in games is, in practice, honestly, Berrien's had several plays that he's made down the field.
Right.
But in games, it's a little bit different. Your guys are going to get up there. They're going to be physical with him at the line. He's never been a guy who really can get off if you do press him. Right. He's got to be able to get a head of steam going downfield.
I think Percy Harvin is the guy to really keep an eye on as far as a deep threat. We don't think of him that way. He's a slot receiver. Frazier said he's the best in the league at that. But I really think in watching him in practice in games that Musgrave is going to use this guy as a deep threat and try and stretch the field with Harvin. You know, the coaching staff, Tom, said all the right things about Berrien so far, about they trust him, this and that. But I really don't think that trust is going to be back there until he proves it in games.
Who's made the most plays at the split end spot? Devin Arumish.
Yeah, exactly. But that being said, so if Berrien can prove that he's a deep threat again, I think he gets the ball. But I really think starting off, the guy Musgrave is going to rely on a lot is Harvin, who has to stay healthy, by the way.
And who has to continue developing as a route runner. I think they're going to try to put him in positions to succeed. He's not a detail guy. He's not going to make the perfect cut 20 yards deep on an in route.
But McNabb
what you can do is he can run by people, and if you get him the ball short, in theory, he can run by people then too, and he's done it very well.
And McNabb, I think, because of his experience, can deal with that. I think he can make Harvin look good. You know, the adjustments from Harvin might not always be there, but a guy like McNabb, unlike Ponder, has the experience. By the way, one more thing. Adrian Peterson has to learn to catch the football. He has dropped far too many passes in this game.
Caught it well in Seattle, but in practice now, I think I'm up to 7 that I've counted in competitive drills that he's dropped, which is
he's got to catch those.
Right.
You know what? Adrian Peterson, I think we have to accept this. He's never going to be a great blocker. He's never going to always pick up on things. It's just not his strength. That's okay. That's not the end of the world. But he's got to catch the football, because in this offense, he's going to be throwing the football, and if he has drops, it's going to become an issue.
Biggest questions in your mind going into Saturday, when starters should play about a half, maybe even a little more in some cases, against Dallas?
I think what I'm going to watch for is the offense. We just have to see where they're at. It's so hard to tell because they're obviously trying to go vanilla. They don't want to show a lot. But that being said, at some point in a game situation before San Diego, don't you want to put something in to see if it works?
Not to mention to see if it works, but to build some confidence. They drove
exactly
in the last game.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, you see if it works. Now, I realize if this offense had been together for 5 years or something, then you don't need to do a thing. You don't show a thing. But can these guys go deep? You know, can they open up things for Peterson? Who knows? We don't know right now. We have not seen enough from this offense to have any idea of what it can really do.
And I'm also interested to look at the defensive secondary, where it sounds like Jamarcus Sanford's going to get our start. Sanford was bad in that game on Saturday. He did not play well.
My theory on that is Jamarcus Sanford is the type of personality, he's a real cocky guy, that when he gets put with a second or third team, his mind wanders. And I think he's much better off when he's playing with the first team. Now, is that a good excuse? Absolutely not. Do I think Jamarcus Sanford should win that job? I really do. Tyrell Johnson, I just think he's too passive. This team has seen far too many passive safeties in the past few years. They need a guy who's not afraid to make a mistake.
What's so interesting with Tyrell Johnson is there's so many people in the organization, particularly on the scouting side, who are still really high on Tyrell Johnson. They remember what they saw in him coming out as a second-round draft pick. But if he doesn't win a starting job this year, what value does he have on your team?
None.
Because he can't play teams.
None. But here's the problem. He's a second-round pick. How many guys, you know...
In a contract year.
And how many guys do you cut, though, who are draft picks? I mean...
Not that many, but 4 years in,
Tyrell
if you haven't been able to play...
Yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, he's definitely gone backwards. Yep. He started for Madu Williams the first year when he had the neck injury. And then the next year was the starter. and then lost a job. So, I mean, he's a definite guy who's gone backwards. The thing I like about Sanford is he's not afraid to make a mistake. He's not afraid to come up and try and stop the run. And this team and its safeties, I think, it's been very frustrating for the coaching staff. And the thing you always hear is, well, we play so deep from the safeties. We can't, well, you know what? That's not always true. Yeah, sometimes you're playing deep, and sometimes that's a problem. But that doesn't stop you from being aggressive. And this secondary, I think, across the board, aside from Antoine Winfield, needs to be more aggressive.
I'm going to like having you around. I don't have to monologue anymore.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
He's Judd.
Good to be on board.
I'm Tom. We'll be here all the time. Full coverage of the Vikings at 1500 ESPN.com. See ya.